Welcome to another episode of Peers Over Beers, your favorite digital and social evangelist podcast, with your industry veteran hosts, Chris Detzel. This podcast starts now.
Recording anyways, but I have this show on Reltio, and so I'll welcome everyone to the Reltio Community Show. Sometimes I might just accidentally say, I haven't yet, but every now and then I catch myself, welcome to Peers Over Beers. Anyways, so how weird would that be? All right, so welcome to another Peers Over Beers. I'm Chris Detzel, and
I'm Elizabeth Kinsey.
Elizabeth, how are you?
I'm hanging in. How are you?
Doing well. It's good to have you on the podcast. It's been a while.
It has. It's been too long, my friend.
Well, we have you scheduled. You were scheduled to do it a few weeks ago, but then, and I'm sure you don't mind me telling this because I think you posted us on Twitter, but you had COVID and kind of a pretty bad bout about it.
Yeah, it was no fun. And I kept losing my voice. So I literally couldn't come on the podcast because I was like, people would have thought there was like errors in their Spotify or on their computer. They'd have been troubleshooting for hours. It would have been terrible. But yeah, got COVID. That was no fun. Do not recommend. Mask up, friends. Don't do it. Don't take the risks. It's not worth it.
I feel like people are getting out and traveling more though, and I just don't think because people look, they care, and they kind of don't care until they get COVID, and you're like, oh, trust me, you don't want COVID, and but it's sorry that you got it, and
Thanks.
Hopefully you feel slightly better and things, or at least a lot better, hopefully.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Good. Well, hey, enough about COVID because it's kind of the talk. It seems like it's been the talk for the last 3 years, but we during the pre-show we were talking a little bit about events, and interesting enough, I feel like I've talked to several community leaders, and community is a big part of a big event that the brand has, and would love to kind of get your take on. I know that you guys at Slack are having an event coming up, and would love to kind of one, get your take on where is it at, and two is what role does community play in your team?
Yeah, Frontiers 2022. Really excited. Speaking of people getting together again, so this will be our first in-person conference for Slack since 2019, which was our last Frontiers. It's going to be part in person and part virtual. So folks will be able to watch on Salesforce Plus if they can't make it to New York in person. But it'll be June 22nd in New York at the Javits Center. And we're pretty excited about it. And community is definitely playing a big role for us. And then I also think community has a big role to play generally at events. But we're working with the community to, get some stories from them that we can showcase in the keynote, help to sort of, make some folks a little bit Slack famous around the things that they're doing and the ways that they're customizing Slack and using the different features. And then we're also going to be hosting Frontiers, all of the attendees in the Slack community workspace, which is really exciting.
Wow. So what does that look like?
Yeah, so that looks like folks who register, who are signed up to attend shortly before the conference date, will get an invite. They'll be able to use a join link to come into the workspace. We have a pro version, so we're able to use things like Workflow Builder. So we'll have a bunch of workflows built, channels for them.
Of course, you have the pro version.
Yeah, it would be pretty sad if we didn't, right? But we'll bring all those folks in, and then for that moment in time, that day that Frontiers is happening, there will be a lot of interactivity in the workspace, ability to connect with the speakers that are there, connect with each other. There'll be things for on-site, things for off-site. So pretty excited about welcoming folks in there, and it really makes sense because the people that are going to your user conference, those are people that they've taken time out of their life. They're obviously invested in the success of your product, whether that's because it's, they needed the success of their work, or they just really love your product. Probably it's the former, not the latter. But you have people that are already really interested and have made that sort of step forward, saying like, I am willing to give up my time, spend money, or get the money from the company, stay in a hotel most of the time. People are coming from all over. So why wouldn't you want to continue to engage with those folks? And for us, we've always, for the past 2 years, we've had a workspace to go along with the event. It's been super fun. There's always new folks that we meet, and getting them from, the event workspace over into the community workspace was always a bit of a challenge. And certainly some people would naturally come over, but, they'd already sort of signed up where they thought they were supposed to be. So why not make it dead simple for them to just stick around? So that's what it'll look like. And I'm still, we're setting a lot of stuff up, and launched a survey today in our workspace to help sort of get a better idea of, long term, what do we want the workspace to be? What is the community's input? So yeah, super excited.
That's pretty cool. What does your team do specifically, like with the event? I mean, are they just kind of monitoring the chat, or what's?
Yeah, so it's parts moderation and parts kind of like operations and admin. So workflows don't just happen. Somebody's got to build them. Things
True.
like having a help desk in the channel. You're going to get kind of similar questions, especially in like a help capacity. So take that FAQ, put in some emoji reaction triggers so that when someone asks that question, instead of the person having to copy paste from a doc or, have to like say the same thing over and over again, you just have a workflow built where you use that emoji and it posts automatically in the thread, mentions the person who asked the initial question. So somebody has to build all of that stuff. And one thing about the Slack community team is we're all experts in Slack. I mean, we kind of have to be. And so especially in like building and using some of the tools, we'll also, because we own the workspace already, we'll be sort of responsible for making sure that like moderation that does happen gets taken care of, acting as the admins on site, but then also just interacting, right? Like people are there to talk to each other, but they're also there to connect with Slack. And so it's our responsibility to show people how to be in the workspace and to engage with them on a human to human level. That's one of the beautiful things about community is that, we're all just people who have similar interests. And so even if it's, on site acting as connectors and helping people there, it's the same in a workspace where you're like, hey, Anthony from North Carolina, I know that you should probably talk to George from Houston because you guys have similar interests. So it's, the same type of stuff that you do for community anyway, just very focused on that moment in time.
I love it. So you guys are heavily engaged, like it. So when you look at a user conference and, you told me a little bit about your role or in the team's role, but what do you guys focus on? Is it the product? Is it thought leadership? Is it, what is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really, for us, a lot of it this time is really about what is the future of work look like? How does the digital HQ play into that? And how can we celebrate the success stories of our customers, the things that they've done that are innovative, and then certainly, where we can and where you're able to, it's always great to either introduce new features or talk about what's coming. So I'm sure that there'll be some of that, but I think really, a lot of it is about, especially this time, is like, how do we just celebrate the fact that we can get together again with each other safely? I mean, it's not going to be, a 10,000 person conference, but it's certainly, and if anyone needs a community code, just, hit me up in the workspace, got you. But I think a lot of it is about just celebrating each other and celebrating the success of getting this far, but at the same time, telling the story of the future of work.
So it's thought leadership mostly. And of course you'll have, maybe a roadmap session about the future of Slack or whatever, but that's pretty cool. Do you have like customer case studies that they come and present about certain things and whatnot?
Yeah, we definitely want to include customers and, help them tell their story and help them, other people learn from those moments. So definitely we'll have customers coming in and,
Cool.
some of those customers come from community. So
Yeah,
that's,
of
I think, one
course.
of the really great things is like, if you are a part of the community and you see your CEO on stage talking with the product leaders, like you're in a good spot and
Yeah,
you've got the inside track. So
that's pretty cool. I like that. Um, so with I had another question. Now it just kind of lost me because I asked that other question. Today we don't really have an events. We just don't have an event at all. We used to, and I think when COVID hit, or even before that, and they just stopped doing it. And I think it's very important. Some of the things that I'm trying to do is because this conversation that we're having today is very interesting to me, just because I think community can play a huge role. And for us, I think that for us to have a user conference, we should build upon how one are we going to get people to a user conference? We're not a Slack, we're not a Salesforce, and things like that. But and how do we get that? And I think it's about one, our community, right? So we have people within the community that are going to want to go to a conference, and maybe there's a technical track, and maybe there's a higher level type track, thought leadership and that kind of stuff. But also, um, how can we start thinking about that today? And to me, it's about what I think about is community led growth. And the way we do that is, maybe it's talking to people and putting them on the spot, putting them on a spotlight, having many kind of, events within this year to really start building the excitement about having a bigger event at some point, and so I think community for us is huge in that. And no one's really thinking about it, I think, except for me, and I'm like, opportunity is huge, to have data leaders in the space talk about, the things that they're working on, the things that they're doing, the problems that they're solving, and had successes with, a lot of people want to hear that. CTOs, chief CIOs, and all those kind of people, right? And so
totally.
we can be kind of that thought leader piece in that from a data standpoint, and that's, I've got really high hopes for that, so anyways.
No, I mean, I don't think that you need to be a big company in order to bring your customers together, even if it's not product specific, if it's thought leadership. So, I think there's a lot to be said about what you were saying about having these kind of small moments to build up to this bigger moment, right? So one of the things that when I was in my previous role at Branch, so we had a user conference that's called Branch Out,
Mm-hmm.
and it was in San Francisco, and it was mobile leaders, product managers, and designers who we brought together. There was like 300 of them. It was a 2-day affair. There was a mix of people presenting about things that they'd done for, mobile app growth.
Mm-hmm.
We were the mobile growth community, and we brought in a lot of those people who had done those smaller events. So you create this excitement within your community, but you're also building out a speaker bench. You're building out the
Exactly.
stories. You're testing the audience to see what are they interested in, what are they not interested in. Does the group from Los Angeles have more interest in talking to brands that are doing commerce, or are they more interested in talking to like software? And so you're able to do a lot of testing in those smaller events to inform that bigger event. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have to be massive. It can be successful and be 200 to 300 people. Sometimes that's almost better. Like I think of some of the best conferences that I've been to have been around the 500 person level, because there's enough new people that you get to know them.
Yeah.
But there's also enough familiar faces that you feel comfortable, and it feels a little bit more intimate. When you're at a 15 or 20,000 person conference, you're not going to see everything. You're not going to talk to everyone you want to talk to. You're not going to do everything. You're going to get exhausted. So sometimes, even though those are much glitzier and
Yeah.
seem, you've got like the big band at the end or whatever that event is, like sometimes smaller is better and less is more. So I would say like to think of it that way as you're pushing this forward, as you're thinking about it. Like it doesn't have
That's
to
good.
be huge. And you can
Yeah,
take all what you've done before and just plug it in.
yeah, I think you're right. I mean, to me, the smaller intimate groups are always better just because you can have, way more from a conversation standpoint. You can have great discussions and, get to know people. At big events, like I've never been to Dreamforce. I think I might go this year just because, we're going to have a booth and presence of some sort, and so it might be a good opportunity to connect with people. But, that conference is so big. Like how do a lot of people are going to that thing. So, and sometimes that's overwhelming for people. Like, I've been at big conferences like that too, and thought, some of these sessions are good, but, to me, I want to go there. I'll give you an example. I went to the CMX conference. I think you actually presented, I don't know, several years ago, and you were there, and I might have said hello to you or something, but other than that, I hardly went to any of those sessions, but I knew I wanted to connect to people. So I just connected to a bunch of people that, like during a session, if you were presenting, I was actually talking to so-and-so, because I wanted to talk to them directly, and I think that's why I personally go to those. There are some specific sessions that I'll probably want to go to, but a lot of times, the session, unless it's a customer doing something specific, and even then, if you're only doing something for 30 minutes of presentation, it's not really, it's hard to find those impactful to me. Like, I know I'm just getting on a high horse. Like, I think people like to do those things, and it gives people opportunity to present and talk about, and I think there's something big about that but to me, I don't know, maybe I'm just not a big sit down and listen kind of guy, I'm just kind of this.
I mean, I can't imagine you're not a sit down and listen kind of guy. I think
Not
I
for
mean,
long.
to your point, like I think that's one of the draws of big events, right? Is that networking aspect. It is that connection aspect. And I think that for some people it's a mix of both. For others like you, it's really just about that aspect. And for some people it's just, especially when you're early in your career, you're like, I certainly attended way more sessions when I was earlier in my career because I didn't know shit, right? So of course I want to go and listen to the Holly Firestones and the Erica Cools and all of the amazing people that were in the industry that the Carrie Melissa Joneses, that I didn't know anything. And so definitely soaking it up. And sometimes it wasn't even about, I can learn specifically what you're doing, but what you're talking about sparks ideas for me. I'm certainly not in the point anymore where I'm like, sorry, I'm going to cut a conversation with someone cool that I've just met short because I want to go and listen to, the same talk about how to start your online community. Like I've been there, I've heard it. I know, I have my own thoughts.
What to do.
And it's not that I don't want to support those folks, but it's like there are so many competing interests there. But I am probably still going to go to some of the sessions because I still need to be inspired, and I still I love seeing.
Well, like if I went, if you're at CMX and I was at CMX, and which I think I'm planning on going to that this year. So, but I would definitely, if you had a session there, because I know you, and I was like, I'm going to that because I want to say hello and I want to listen to her and support her, that kind of stuff. And
I would expect nothing less.
Exactly.
Just kidding.
Where the fuck was Chris? What a jerk! Never doing a podcast with that dude. No, but seriously, no, but I think that so there's session now, especially now that I actually know certain things, depending on kind of how to build a community from scratch. Well, I've done a lot of that. And I could talk about that as a session, maybe I could do, but it's not one I would probably go to, or maybe I would ask them questions around, well, what does it mean a year later, that kind of stuff. So maybe I have questions around, how do you mature a community, or you've been a community manager for a long time at Slack, right? And so and you guys just built a platform, back a year or so ago. And so, there's lots of great questions things that you can answer. Anyways, the point is, back to events.
I mean, we're still talking about events.
Yeah.
Uh,
I get off a little easier of the subject, or pretty easily. Well, I like that idea. You know, for me, again, it's networking, but for others, they like the sessions and things like that. And it's really cool that your community is super engaged into events, which it seems to make sense. You know, I think that and somebody mentioned this, and I don't disagree, is when you put on an event, it's pretty much all hands on deck. You know what I mean? You got the PMs in, you've got, uh, marketing, you have community, you have tons of other people, probably
brand, you have
CSMs.
sales, you have CSMs, you
Exactly.
have, your customer experience, you've got the web team, you've got demand gen, you've got everybody. Email marketing ops, business technology, everybody's got a part to play for sure.
So the person that's facilitating those conversations has got to be a pretty awesome, badass person, to do that. I mean, because that's a lot of people
it's
to kind
so
of
many moving parts.
Ugh.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was that person for Branch Out, and it was, I mean, we had a binder that was like literally a moment by moment that
Here you are.
just flip through, and you're like,
Here, okay, this
9:36 a.m. on Tuesday. Okay, this is what should be happening. This is where all the people should be. And that's just for the on-site, right? Like, think about all of the stuff that went into building that out.
Yeah.
It's a lot of players. I have nothing but respect for event professionals, because that is a hard job. Like, talk about having to solve problems that you cannot even imagine happening. Like, sure, you can, like, you got your worst case scenarios planned out, but things come up at events that you have to like figure out on the fly. Things break, people, it's such a high demand job. And like, you have to be really good at thinking on the fly. And the other thing that's so impressive to me about event professionals, you have to do all of that with a straight face. Like, nobody else needs to know that everything's on fire behind me. You just have to sit there and be like, oh, the fire department, aren't we so glad they're here today, friends? Like, you cannot show
the speaker
stress.
Doesn't show up, all that stuff happens,
just a quick aside, horror story. So I once planned an event, and I don't know if I've told you, I don't know who I told this story to recently, but I told this story to someone recently. So I had hosted an event. We did a month or once a quarter, we would host it at the same place. So I was real friendly with the event coordinator. It was our biggest sort of event for customers, for the quarter. And it involved a lot of people, AEs, sales, the presenters, everybody. I had in the subject line of the email was the right date. All the communication, we said the right date. Somehow signed a contract for the day later.
No.
So we show up, like, I've got 25 people with me to start setting up this, afternoon to evening event. And they're like, you're not supposed to be here till tomorrow. I'm like, can you go get Becky? Because I'm pretty sure it's today. And I'm looking at my phone and I'm reading. I'm like, look, she said, I'll see you tomorrow.
That was today.
They go back, and she comes out and she's like, oh my God, I just realized what happened. Like, the contract had the wrong date, but you and I were on the same page. And she's like, I thought you were coming. It's on my calendar for this date. But they had double booked the room. And they had double booked it with the police convention. So there was a bunch of police officers in San Jose that were, there for some type of a training. And I ended up getting them booted out of our room, because like, we're there every quarter.
Yeah.
And so they put the police in the smaller room, and then they put us in the room that we were supposed to be in. And like, we took all their food. They had to wait for, like, I don't really feel that bad. But it was certainly one of those moments where I was like, I never would have planned for, what do you do if you show up and you're the idiot that hasn't figured out that your contract is on the wrong date. So yeah, mad respect to
things
event
happen.
planners.
Things happen, and you just and you plan the best you can. And those people have, like yourself, have to be really amazing planners. I'll give you give an example.
I'll tell you, I never, ever, ever had another contract that I didn't look at 67 times to make sure it matched the date I thought it would.
Yeah.
So, you learn.
You definitely learned from that. And hey, and it still worked out, it sounds like. So, that's the thing, is how do you still make it work out with tons of people coming?
Yeah.
Little story is, I am planning this event here in Dallas for Reltio, and I'm working with a partner of ours, that I saw him at one of our offsites, and I said, hey man, we need to start partnering more often, because we don't do any partnerships. And why not have like customers and prospects at a dinner? Let's just do something in Dallas. I live in Dallas, might as well.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, let's do it. And so just this little event, I'm working with sales, I'm working with somebody in marketing that puts together, these event type things. I'm working now with the partners marketing team and the partner sales team. And I'm like, Jesus, this is only like, I just want 20 people to show up or so, and that's it. Let's just have some fun. It doesn't work that way. I mean, it's a big time suck for a lot of different people. And I'm thinking, Jesus, there's a page that's got to be created, and then somebody's got to do the rest of it. Then you got to have lists, and then the marketing teams might want some, swag stuff over at the event. And I'm like, dude, I just want to go have some beers and talk to people. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm flying somebody out from Boston, to come to Dallas to be kind of the thought leader, and I'm thinking there's got to be an easier way, to just meet up, and right now there's not. Like, you got to build it. You got to kind of,
do. Yeah. No, events are an ecosystem. They are not, I mean, I think that there are some levels and some ways that you can just sort of show up and have something be ad hoc. And, but when you're thinking about investing a significant amount of time and energy, and money, you need something back from that. Right. And the great conversations aren't enough. Like, you need something to give to sales, and you need something to give to marketing, and you need something to get all of that goodness that you're looking for back.
Yeah. I think it's really about, and I was talking to somebody earlier about this, is, community really needs to kind of continue to insert themselves into the business. Right. So I think from a community leader standpoint, the hardest part is, one is doing just that, is, have your strategy, if it's events, what role does community play in events? And some of that stuff's extremely tactical, but, the strategy could be, well, we're very good at moderating conversations. We're very good at, a lot of different things, connecting people. And let's show what the community team can do. And then over time, what you have is, you're embedded in the business in a big way, and I think that it's hard for us to, what I think is hard for us is, and I'm getting off a little bit, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but so we're very good at connecting people and getting discussions going, and, making sure our customers are taken care of and things like that, but something that's hard, and sometimes I have a hard time doing this, is, truly kind of embedding ourselves internally into the business and saying, these are the outcomes that community drives. Here's the proof, here's the business goal. You know what I mean? Like, all those things are very difficult and something that we have to get better at. And I like how, from an event standpoint, you guys are really trying to embed yourself into that. So nice work.
Thanks. I mean, I think it takes time. I don't think that you're wrong. I think it is hard. And I think sometimes those are different skill sets, but we expect people to be able to do all of those things. And, sometimes maybe there is a skill set that is more suited for internal enablement, and one that is more suited for customer enablement or community enablement. I don't think that that's always the case. I don't think that they have to be mutually exclusive, but I think at some point, like, those are two different roles, right? Like, you cannot be the person who is living and breathing your community and also living and breathing with every single department internally, finding champions, because you're building an internal community, right? Like, if you want to layer yourself into that part of the business, you can't be your only champion. You have to make alliances. You have to find the people that understand the value, who, when they say what's in it for me, already kind of have an idea of how they would like to see a benefit, right? And I think that sometimes with community managers, you're so protective of the community that it's hard to be like, there should be something in it for you. But there has to be, in order for those people to be invested and invite you into the room, right? So you have to find the champions, and like that, it can be a full-time job, you know, like especially if you're at a really big company or you have a lot of different roles within your company or a lot of different stakeholders. It can be quite the challenge to not only like create and maintain those relationships, but what happens when that person leaves? What happens when your, you know, champion and product is like, cool, peace, I'm out, go into this other company. And now you have to tell that story again. And I think what ends up being the most successful is when you are finding those allies and able to bring community into that layer of the business, is empowering those allies to tell other people what the benefit is. So that, again, you're not the only megaphone, right? Like you have to build those alliances.
It's very well said. I love that. Wow.
It's like probably I'm like shocked that I was able to say that. The brain fog situation is real, my friends. So this is like my most lucid moment of the day, and it's all for you.
Oh, that's great, because, you know, I'm going to take that and it's going to be a little clip, and it's going to look, to me, it looks really good because you said something extremely smart. You know what I mean?
Finally.
You know, you do all the time. So it's always good. Sometimes I like to take the funny moments out, you know, but I'm thinking about taking more of the serious moments into, you know, hey, she said something really smart. Let's take that. You know what I mean? So I'm going to do more of it. Anyways, I digress a little bit, but
I love where we started and where we ended up, though, because I think it all feels like we walked a very natural path here. So
good. Well, I think we'll end on that. But Elizabeth, thanks so much for coming on to another Peers Over Beers. I'm Chris Detzel, and
I'm Elizabeth Kinsey. Thanks for having me again.
thanks for coming, everyone.